In this video, we're going to be doing some questions on surds. And the first question tells us to simplify the square root of 12 plus 3 times the square root of 48 plus the square root of 75. Now the first thing we want to do is see if there are any common factors of the square root of 12, square root of 48 and the square root of 75. And a few simple calculations will show us that 12, 48 and 75 are all divisible by 3, so the square root of 3 is a common factor. Now, if you haven't seen my video on surds, I would recommend you check that video out first so you understand the processes which I'm about to go through now. So we know, using those processes, that the square root of 12 can be written down as a product of two smaller square roots, and as 3 is divisible by 12, we can write this as, well, the square root of 3 times 4, which is the square root of 4 times the square root of 3. And we know that the square root of 4 is 2 because 2 times 2 is equal to 4. So therefore, the square root of 12 can be written as 2 square root of 3. Okay. Now let's look at the second one. We got 3 square root of 48. Now, we want to focus in on the square root of 48, but don't forget about the 3 here, okay? So how can we break this down? Now, we want the square root of 48 divisible by 3, and 48 divided by 3 gives us 16. So we can write the square root of 16 times by 3. And again, we're going to split this into two separate surds, or square roots. 16 times the square root of 3. And the square root of 16 is equal to 4, so that gives us 4 square root of 3. But don't forget about the 3 that we left out over here. So then let's multiply 4 square root of 3 by 3, and that gives us 12 square root of 3. Okay? And then finally, we got the square root of 75. Okay? And again, the process is similar. We know that the 75 divided by 3 is equal to 25. So we can break this down into the square root of 25 times 3, and we're going to split them up. So we've got the square root of 25 times the square root of 3. The square root of 25 is 5 because 5 times 5 is 25, and that gives us 5 square root of 3. Okay, so therefore, to give us our answer then, we need to add together our answers here. So we've got 2 square root 3, 12 square root 3 and 5 square root 3. So go, let's write this down. Plus 12, 3 plus 5 square root 3. Now, because these guys are all the same here, all we need to do is add up the numbers in front of our surds. So we've got 12 plus 5 is 17, plus 2 is 19, giving us 19 square root of 3. And that is our final answer. Our second question tells us to expand and simplify 7 minus the square root of 11 times 2 plus the square root of 11. And if you don't know how to expand brackets, this would be a good time to learn that, because we're going to need that knowledge to answer this question. But if not, I'm going to go through it with you anyway. Now, to expand the brackets, we want to multiply every term in our first expression by every term in the second bracket here. So let's do that now. So we've got 7 times 2. Now 7 times 2 is equal to 14. And we've got 7 multiplied by the square root of 11. That's just going to give us 7 square root of 11. And then we've got minus square root of 11 times 2. And that's going to give us a negative 2 square root of 11. Because of course, if you multiply a positive number by a negative number, that is going to give you a negative number. And then we've got 2 surds in here. So if you want to multiply 2 surds together, if you see my video on surds, you would know that we can simply remove the square root symbol. So this will just give us negative 11, okay? Because we've got a negative square root 11, a positive square root 11, multiply them together will just give us negative 11. And if you don't believe me, plug that into your calculator and that's exactly what you'll get. Now let's collect the like terms here. So we've got 14 minus 11. So 14 minus 11 gives us 3. And then these have got the same endings here. So we just need to do 7 minus 2 gives us positive 5. And therefore we get 3 plus 5 square root 11. And that is our final answer. Our final question tells us to simplify the square root of 75 minus the square root of 12, giving your answer in the form a square root 3, where a is an integer. So yet again, we're looking for a common factor of 75 and 12. And ideally we'd be left with a surd, which is the square root of 3, and a number or a square root which can be simplified down into an integer a. Okay, so let's see whether or not 75 and 12 can be divided by 3, because if they can, that is perfect. So first of all, let's look at 75. 75 divided by 3 is equal to 25. Okay, that's great. So let's rewrite that now as 75 equals the square root of 25 multiplied by 3, which is equal to the square root of 25 multiplied by the square root of 3. And the square root of 25 is 5, so that gives us an expression of 5 square root of 3. And we have an integer here, which is great. That is in the form a square root 3. Now let's see if we can do the same with our negative 12. Okay, so the square root of 12 divided by 3, so 12 divided by 3 is 4, so we can do the same thing again here. 4 times 3 is equal to 12, so we can rewrite our square root of 12 as the square root of 4 times 3. And that can be split into 2 as the square root of 4 multiplied by the square root of 3. And we know that the square root of 4 is 2 because 2 times 2 is 4, giving us 2 square root of 3. And again, we have it in this form a square root 3. So to finish this off then, all we need to do is take away these, because that is the square root of 75, that is the square root of 12. So you've got 5 square root 3 minus 2 square root 3 equals what? Well, they got the same square root of 3, so all we need to do is take away the 5 and the 2, giving us 3 and the square root of 3. So 3 square root of 3 is our final answer. If you have any questions about this video, then please leave a comment below and I'll get straight back to you. Thank you very much for watching.